Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Lavender Sky Panther. Today is Friday, May 7th, 2021, and today's topic is called Sky Freestyle. It's a collection of images and sky observations happening April 29th through May 5th, 2021. And here's an alternate cover slide I just want to throw in. I was on the fence on which one to go with, and I like them both. I hope you do too. And if you like one over the other, I hope I picked the right one for you today. All right, now, before we hop into the sky observations, I'd like to say good day. Osio, how, buongiorno, guten tag, kia ora, jambo, kedu, buenos dias, bonjour, ni hao, dzień dobry, konnichiwa, dobro dnia, annyeonghaseyo, boa tarde, dobry den, aloha winala, kalimera, and hudendag. And today's starter image is of a northern cardinal and a Lysiloma tree in Miami, Florida. Locally, they're also known as just a red cardinal. Now, I was taking a photo of it up through, backlit. Obviously, you see the sunlit sky, beyond. And so everything was pretty dark and shadowy. So I just played with some of the attributes of the photo to pull out a little bit of the red in the otherwise shadowed cardinal. And it gives a nice overall watercolor effect. So I hope you like it just as an image to look at. All right, now we're going to jump into the show. A big heartfelt thanks for being here, and a welcome to everyone, whether you're new or returning to this channel. If you are new, I'm going to show some photos and walk through them. It's just whatever presented itself in the sky on this given time frame. Usually very, odd or strange things kind of popping up in the sky. And we're going to do some editing of attributes. So when you see enhanced photo on any of these labeled, that just means that I've edited things such as contrast, brightness, color saturation, things of that nature, just to better highlight and see some things that we know are happening in the sky, and that we can read them by putting some editing on the attributes better than if we just see it with the naked eye, because the camera has such a vast and better range of photo and light sensitivity to it. Anyway, I'm also going to drop in some letters to highlight specific areas in any given photo, things of interest. Now, I'm going to also refer to these as strange cloud activity in quotes, cloud in quotes, because some of this stuff is either cloaking material, and we're going to refer to that as my go-to is going to be plasma. It just means something that's a little bit denser in nature than just water vapor or cloud material that I suspect is used for cloaking material. For craft, and when I say craft, I'm referring to something that could be military made or ET in origin, or a collaboration between the two. And it can also be something that is 3D, tactile, tangible, like you could go up and knock on it, or it could be something very interdimensional, very ethereal, ephemeral, and ghost-like, and that, it's just, has some kind of type of cloak that we might not even understand what's going on, or it could be a 3D craft that is coming in and out, phasing in and out of state. So anyway, as always, see what you think with any of these things, and I always invite you to leave a comment if you have some other impression of what could be going on, or have any just fun, fantastical ideas of what you're seeing. Anyway, let's get to things, and I'll explain a little more as we go along. In this case, I'm just going to kind of move through rather quickly. Some of these things, even though I've labeled, I might not get to all of them, and I invite you just to have a look around at some of these on your own time, at your leisure, when you have a little more time. For now, I'm just going to kind of zoom through this first slide of A, B, and C. What I'm noting here is we have three distinct, completely different types of quote-unquote cloud happening. The letter A looks more like a sky wisp, but it has structure to it. So we have these loops. It looks like almost like a chain, looks like a repeating pattern, and we have some dimension and activity happening here at the lower half to the right. B is its own animal. It looks nothing like A or C. And C is so loosely not even put together. It's not like any typical cloud form of decades past. So we're going to look at this as with enhancement. We can better see the kind of organized structure happening along here. So I think this is definitely A is some type of sky elemental or air wisp, something a little more supernatural in nature. That, or it could be an interdimensional craft popping up. B.1, I really couldn't see much more, but there is like a fuzzy fuzz out, which tells me something is probably coming or going in here. And C.1, it's hard to say if this is a triangular form hiding in there or something else is up. Anyway, that's all. I'm just going to leave this scene for now like that, see what you think is going on. Now we're going to look at another odd situation here looking west. All of this down here, it's not, this is not cumulus cloud. This looks very artificial. It's a very artificial generated cloud, the way it's billowing up. And so we're going to take a look at this little, with some enhancement. Also note the color signature in the sky. This is looking to the west toward 8 p.m. And we see this, unmistakable reddish pink signature in the sky. I invite you to look in the description box below to see what could be causing that. I outlined some or list some very possible things, that this could be, or why it's being showing up in the sky, and why it's being masked out too by kind of like this haze, which I think is also artificially generated. Then, but let's get into the task at hand here, so to speak. So we're going to look at A, B, C, and D, and E, and it's just, this thing is welling up and has its own character, has weird little outcroppings. How do we have kind of horizontal movement, and then bam, something moving up vertically, and then off to the side here, something has a very sharp edge to it. So the whole scene's just strange. Let's look in and zoom in a little bit with more enhancement. Now, 8.2 looks like something, object with cloaking material around it. You can just see two different densities, something like a dark object with stuff kind of cascading around it. Cloaking material is what I'm calling it. Now, B.2, we have a triangular shape, very clear, distinct triangular shape happening. C.2, we see these bright little points popping out. I talk about this at length in other shows. Little crystalline structure and things with dimension and shadow happening, to me, is a dead giveaway that something is going on back in there, something of intelligent design, because we have really bright white points sticking out when everything else is either dark gray or a solid color. This even looks like a little, like it could be another, shape coming off of this bigger thing. Then we have a circular shape thing, more crystalline activity happening here. It just looks like it has structure to it, like something's being hidden and cloaked, beneath. Now, what's interesting is E.2 has kind of a purple hue to it. This has kind of greenish hue, and then we get to some white. So I'm going to say that there is definitely enough in here to suspect cloak and craft. We look off to the right again. We have a very clean, sharp edge. I think that will pop up in a show later. And this little white speck here is actually what looked like a human, made aircraft was starting at its very beginning to do a chemtrail. Now, I do talk about the difference between chemical trails and condensation trails in an early on show, and the first 5 shows. Have a look there so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, now here we're going to zoom in yet again. Just again, we see the color signatures popping up: green, white. Look at this, has clear shadow happening there. And then this looks like it has structure, kind of symmetry happening on these two things angling inward. There's just a lot of very suspect activity happening here. 8.3, we get a better look at that darker object with some cloaking material around it. Okay, now we're going to look at another scene now looking north around the same time frame at sunset. And here I just noticed some red-pink signature in the sky that just seemed a little strange. And also I wanted to take a better look at what was going on with this quote-unquote cloud activity. And bam, you see that red-pink pop up even stronger, just with a tiny tweak of the attributes being edited a little bit. 8.1, we see a clear triangle happening here under some cloaking material. D.1 is also triangular shape. There's something happening in here too, but it's a little more nondescript. C.1 looks like an object kind of launching upward from whatever is happening in this little mass. Anyway, see what you think is going on in that scene. Now this one gets very interesting. So I do have little points, A, B, C, D, E, kind of noted here. What gets really interesting is when you look at the profile of this. So we've got like a dome with a stick popping out of it. This looks like a kind of rectangular form. So, and then it launches out to like extends out to a point. We're going to look at this with some enhancement. Here you see it better. To me, this whole thing is definitely like a ship, like a craft happening beyond here. You can see the different densities. So this is darker where my cursor is, and this looks like cascading or tufted, I like to call it, bunched up plasma around the edges as this thing moves through the sky. Now, what's interesting here too is this kind of has a little dome-like thing, a little stick happening. This to me looks like the bridge of, whatever craft this is, and we see this point. Now, this in front, I don't know if this is just kind of some random cloaking interference to give layers of cloaking effect to this thing, or if there's some activity happening in here, you be the judge on that one. And then there's something strange happening here too, where this takes on a very distinct triangular form at E.1. All right, now we're going to look to another scene now to east-northeast, and this is now at a sunrise. And what happened here is just things were starting to look a little fuzzy to the naked eye. This had some type of darker gray form happening here. Just everything started to look a little strange. We had a very distinct, pointed ellipse happening here with some activity springing off it where E is. D looks like a triangular form. Just everything about this was really strange. So let's look at it with some enhancement. And again, I suspect there's cloak and craft in here with some type of object springing off of it. If you look at the trajectory and the motion of stuff flying off here, this very sharp angle. And then we're going to take a look at this one more time. But this again looks like a triangle, darker, darker gray form. And then here, C.1, look at, we're getting some distinct hard edges and detail happening in here. So I think something is emerging on the scene. A.1, this is starting to have facets to it. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a hexagon shape here, kind of more in the void patterning happening there. And let's take a look at it. I think one more time, or a couple times, we're going to zoom in on that pointed ellipse shape. And we just have some little crystalline points are popping out here. So to me, that's a form of cloak happening. And then here we've got these little things kind of fraying off the top. And to me, it looks like something like a projectile or two projectiles, launching off of this thing at AA. At BB, we start to see a point. So keeping that in mind, it gets faded out here, but it looks like a point bursting through with some cloaking material cascading over it. I think there's like a, cloaking haze over this whole thing. And then AA.1, again, I just see like a little object, and this looks like it has a trail behind it, so it looks like two little things shooting off, or maybe this one's coming this way and this one's coming this way, I'm not sure. See what you think is happening in that scene. And then we're going to look at it again. So E is our little point to this thing, that pointed ellipse. Then we look over here, we start to see some harder edges with shadow to them. Here's that, triangle, that like darker, hazy triangle at C. It even looks like it has a trail coming off of it. And then let's look at the enhanced version to see what else is going on. Not really going to talk about A and B for now. It was noting, actually I will, sorry, I'll go to A.1. There were just these little crystalline points popping out looking like they were forming a pattern. So I think something's cloaking up here as well. Something cloaking here in this kind of gray haze. C.1 was where we had that interesting structure. It's kind of getting enveloped and becoming part of this overall thing. So this could be part of cloaking craft. And of course, this C.1 is that darker triangle holding true. And look how it's grasping. If this is a triangle with rounded edges, that's what it looks like to me. Look at the way this looks like a clear trail hanging on to that point, that rounded point. Anyway, see if you see anything interesting popping up. See what comes out, to you. All right, now we're going to pan over to the south, a little bit more to the south of where we were in the sky, still looking east. And it was just, look at this whole strange collection of things. So we see something around A starts to have structure to it. These little weird, fragments that doesn't happen with a normal cloud system, in this overall pattern. B looks like there's like a void happening here. And when we see this fuzzy kind of choppiness in the sky, I call that staccato cloud, meaning, choppy, interrupted. It looks fuzzy to the naked eye as well. And so to me, that means there's some type of craft or object cloaking up in there, creating some disturbance in the localized atmosphere. So like it could be electromagnetic wave activity or some type of other kind of movement. Here's with some enhancement. Look at this, where B.1 is, we come down to a little bit of a point, and then look at this curve. It's a clear curve. Like if you imagine there's a dark void right here, look at that clear edge making a curve. So I think there's definitely something cloaking right there. Making the void shape is actually an object. Or it could be a portal, or it could be any number of things. But my sense is that there's a cloaking object there. And then look at A.1. We just have some weird activity, weird shape. This is on an angle. This is, doing its own thing. These things are, doing their own angles. This is relatively straight. So what's going on? It looks like something else is emerging here as well. This dark, dark figure in the void as well. See what you think's happening. Just seems like something, though. Okay, here's now looking south, and this was the alternate cover slide I had at the beginning, a form of it anyway. So look on the left is the original photo. I just saw these two, distinct forms stand alone in the sky. There was nothing else. This is clearly a rhombus. Let's actually hop over to the right-hand side for the enhanced version for a better view. Look at this. That's like a rhombus type form with something happening within it. Then this thing looks like it's entering into the atmosphere doing something. And then look at this chaos over here at C.1, doing its own thing. Now, are these objects cloaking? I think so, because look at even here where my cursor is. That looks like a end of a tube. It's pretty round or cylindrical. Or is it just kind of chaotic interference, like as a red herring to something cloaking here in the void? This could be the edges of something else happening. Hard to say. Could be both. See what you think these things are. I don't know. Is this even like a portal forming? Who knows? But to me, because this has symmetry and sharp angles to it, I'm going to go with that this is a cloaking craft at least. See what you think is happening there. We're going to zoom in on each of those standalone figures. So here's that one that looked like a rhombus to me, or at least some type of form of one. We see some very distinct, geometry and symmetry happening here, for example. You can just see this looks like an open cup shape. We also have what looks like a pointed ellipse, happening in here. There's so much going on in here. Not even going to be able to even guess at this one. So this will be a big question mark, but it's fascinating. See what you think is going on in there. Now here's the other form nearby, the adjacent one that we're calling C, and there's a big void happening in here with other stuff traipsing across, but it does have structure in its own kind of chaotic way. Let's look at it here a little bit better. So again, I'm going to leave this one to you to see, if you can see and figure out what's going on. This even starts to look like a standalone craft or form because it has some dimension to it, some shadow and some shape, in a line. But again, see what you find of interest in there. Okay, this is a scene looking northwest towards sunset, and this one was just strange. The upper left is the original photo, giving you the overall scene, and here's A and B for reference. So we're going to be looking at A.1 is this kind of little standalone object here. There's also something weird happening nearby, but I'm just going to look at the A and B portion for now, because this has sharp angles to it. To me, it screams that there's a cloaking craft in there. Also, there's darker portion happening behind this. So let's look at with some enhancement. And A.2 kind of confirms it for me that this has to be a cloaking craft, not only because of the sharp edges, very clean, strong lines, but also look where my cursor is, just above this palm tree. It's a different color signature on this, I'm going to call cloaking material, than, the stuff happening around it. So I think that is something just kind of coming with its own cloak. And then here at B2, there's something darker happening beyond here. And even above it, look how clean that line is starting to look, on angle. So see what you think is happening in there. Okay, this is now panning over to the north-northwest at a sunrise, and we're going to look at these areas A, B, C, and D. There is just a whole heck of a lot of varied movement going on in the very same vicinity. That's why it caught my attention. And by that, I mean we've got these things like wisping up and doing their own thing, and they're totally different angles. B.1, I believe, is a man-made chemical trail happening because it's, just a straight line coming in, and it's starting to linger in the sky the way chemtrails do. And again, refer to my previous show on that so you can get some of my descriptions and thoughts on that if you need them. And then if the concept of chemical trails is new to you. Anyway, 8.1, there looks like something with structure kind of forming with some dimension to it. And then D.1, it's just this is coming off at an opposing angle from this. So there's no way in a natural sky with a typical wind current you would have something opposing, at direct angles to each other. That's why this caught my attention. And then also there's just a lot of stuff happening in here, so I can't really get to too much more. But I can tell you this seems to have a little bit of a triangular form to it in this too. And this is doing its own thing, and this as well. So there's just a lot happening in this scene. Now we're going to look west at a little bit after 7:30 at a sunset. And this looked like an artificial, where I have A, this line did look like a very strong artificially created chemical trail. And then we have this, which looks like, artificial made, but of a different type. So I don't know if, this was man-made, and this is ET forming coming in here, interdimensional. But it has a very interesting structure to it. So we're going to look at this with some enhancement. And we also then start to see an interesting color signature pop up. So we've got the red-pink coming in. Again, look at the description box for what that could be. I give many options. There might even be some that aren't even on the list that aren't there. And then we've got this golden activity where the sun, this is the sun down here, is supposedly setting. So have a look around. No matter what, there's a ton of haze in this sky that is artificial in nature. And here at 8.1, we've got something that looks like a triangular imprint there, or maybe there's a bigger shape happening beyond, and that might be a reason why this deliberate chemtrail is being placed in the sky to, so people don't see some of the signs and things popping up in the sky. All right, now this is a panorama of that, same scene, time, and space looking west. And, it's going to be a little distorted. It didn't, this chemtrail didn't arc like that. It was a little flatter, but you get the idea. So I think this portion was man-made, and that this stuff coming in front of it is not man-made. And we look down at the enhanced version, and we get this big, bright red-pink flare-up over here to the side, while the sun is supposedly setting way over here. So why? Why is that spiking up in that color range? Is very interesting. I don't have an answer, but I just find it very fascinating that it's like something is being obscured in front of this to hide that, red flash. See what you think is going on. Okay, now we're going to still look at that portion of that what looked like chemtrail with kind of supernatural things coming down at A, and happening in here in B as well. So we're going to look to the right at the enhanced version. We can just see all this different angles and different types of consistencies. I mean, there's just so much going on that it's screaming. There's artificial, things of many different types happening in this scene. Then we're going to look a little further to the north of where we were just looking at that, and then we see this emerging. And so this seemed to be kind of an animal of its own. We have like an arc, and we have this weird stuff going up in this direction, and then we have a point starting to focus around here. So we're going to look at that with some enhancement. Here's that little point. So I think there is a cloak and craft happening all in here, but see what you think. Then we're going to zoom in on it a little bit more. It's starting to fall apart a little bit, but that's where that point was. And we're going to look at it too, just to see if we get any more telltale signs of what's going on. I still start to see something kind of emerging, something kind of cloaked back in here, but see what you find in the scene. All right, we're going to go back to that end of, that one end where we had all different movement and just seeing it at a slightly different time frame. And then we look to the right and we see that color signature, no mistaking how red-pink it is. And then look at, we have all these lines coming in at different angles. What could possibly be causing that in a natural sky where, again, we would take it as a wind current would just be moving in one direction, and yet this is opposing, that movement. See what you think is happening. Okay, now this one's very interesting, and this is in part where we derive the cover slide from. So now we're looking northeast towards sunset, and things were looking, kind of reddish pink to the naked eye. But what caught my attention was these three distinct forms, and they look like a repeating pattern, and of different sizes. Then also what caught my attention is this fragment at letter A, just seemed to be its own animal. And then C, there's a band, it looked like a chemtrail coming this way or coming this way. Let's look here. I think it was coming down this way because I did see the plane forming it. And so let's have a look. We've got these, these forms. We start to get that red-pink signature. Now keep in mind, we're looking to the east-northeast. So why is everything so red at dead horizon when that should be just happening over, diametrically opposed on the horizon to the west? Anyway, let's keep looking at what's going on here. We're going to zoom in. Now I'm putting a little more contrast and things on this, just in color saturation, a little bit more exaggerated, just to see what's really going on. So here's that little stream. That's a chemtrail, at least is what I could best tell. And then here are these three forms. So I'm going to call these cloak and craft because look, they have distinct shape to them that kind of echo, and it looks like it's like a fleet of them flying, wing to wing, so to speak. And it also looks like they have trails coming off, behind each one of them. But see what you think is going on. Okay, now here's another scene looking west towards sunset. And this just got strange because look at letter B. It's like moving almost vertical while everything else is on a different angle doing its own thing. So we're going to look to the right, and with the enhanced version, and again, we just see this red-pink color signature really jump out. And, again, it's almost like that's being camouflaged or being generating behind whatever this heavy cloak is. And then again, what's B1 doing? It's kind of like almost a pointed elliptical shape, just on a flopping off on a weird angle from everything else. Or is that just the forming border of this, this imprint that could be a triangular imprint? See what you think's going on, but this whole scene is all kinds of strange. Okay, then we're going to keep looking at some of the strange activity. I'm just noting A, B, and C. I invite you to look at your own time on this, but, there seems to be a form here. This is just noting all of this strange concentration of stuff. It looks like something's flying in here, going this direction. Well, this is doing its own thing and kind of billowing up like a flame, while we have something else streaking out or into in this direction. So we're just going to, blow it out with some interesting adjustments on the attributes. And look at this. I mean, it's just such wild and varied character everywhere you look. And we've got the red-pink signature way over here, and this starts to blast out bright white, yet ironically the sunset is happening off to the right of the photo toward the west. So, it's just very, very odd. See what you think is going on. And then this is more oddities happening looking southwest. So just looking, what caught my attention was the way this is streaking and the way this looks like a darker form kind of hiding behind some other, material. So we'll look at that with enhancement, and here see that darker shape looming beyond at B.1. A.1 also looks a little strange, just trying to get at what is going on in here. See if you see anything of interest. Then we're going to look at this. Look at B. It's like a dark smudge out, and nothing else looked like that in the sky. So right away, that of course draws some attention, and also some bright crystalline points start popping out. So I'm going to say there's definitely something cloaking at B. That's what I highly suspect. And then this looks like starting to be something like a void, or just again, look at these strange, these repeating lines. So that to me says something is generating some wave activity up in there. So let's look at it with some enhancement. Here you see those, bold lines, and they're very bright white, even though everything else has like a tinge of color to it. And then B.1, we see a total gray smudge out. So to me, that's an object back in there, no mistaking it. But see what you think. Okay, now we're going to look at strange cloud activity at sunrise looking east. And this gets very interesting. Obviously, we see the sun trying to come up, and we have some type of, really low riding, it's not even really clouds. It's like disintegrated forms of plasma or cloud, hard to say. But look at, that's moving along in this direction. This is coming down, B is coming down an angle. And then there's this weird chunk happening over here. But look at A, we start to see bright white. Nothing else is like it all around except maybe up here. So to me, that is something of a different animal and character. And so we're definitely looking at all of this with some enhancement. And look at this, just some basic enhancement, and that stays white and true. So I'm saying A.1 is a cloak and craft. This one might be one up here too. And then B.1, I'm also going to call cloak and craft because there's a very solid object with some, looks like cloaking material, tufting up, wafting over it, and looks like something is even projecting off of it. Anyway, see what you think, but we're going to look at A.1 in a little more detail. So look at, I'm putting different little, slightly different tweaks on the editing of the attributes, and this still holds true. And then B.2 still holds as a dark mass with some like lighter, cloaking material coming over the top of it. Then we're going to go to 8.3, looking at this just a little bit bigger and, a little slightly different editing on it of the attributes. And look at this. We start to see, these two very distinct forms toward the, what I'll say is the front of this thing. To me, this would be like a wing happening out to the one side and out here too. But let's look at it one more time. This gets a little bit mappy on a big screen, so squint if you are looking at this on a laptop. If it's on a handheld device, I think you're okay. But anyway, look again, we've got this pure curve, this straight line here. So to me, this has structure, organized structure to it, and this, thing poking out, I think is an extension on one side of whatever's happening with this overall thing. So I'm calling it a cloak and craft. See what you think it is. Okay, now this scene, we're looking southeast, and it just, struck me as odd. Again, just the character, the way this kind of disintegrates. It's not even a true cumulus cloud. You can't call it that on any way, any level. There's just no way. This thing's kind of at a strange angle too, and there's some weird stuff floating in front of it that have triangular shapes to them. So let's look again at the enhanced version. Look at the scene again in an enhanced version. Here we go. So we have, different consistencies happening with all of this quote-unquote cloud material. So I'm going to say there's stuff cloaking at D, at C, at B, and at A. And then we go down to E.1 and look at this shape. It has a point to it. And so I'm going to say there's stuff cloaking here, like I said at D1. Look at this up here. There's a pure triangular shape, like a peak happening right there. So I'm going to say there is obviously, definitely stuff cloaking all in behind here. Then we have this weird, strand moving off with like a sphere, looks like multiple spheres. So I'm going to say that is overall cloaking craft and activity. See what you think it is, though. Okay, this one is interesting. Overall, seeing the originals on the left. I just noticed a difference in the color. Sometimes there's like a very ethereal light pops up. It looks otherworldly. It's more like a white, blue LED, but something like, I haven't really seen before, other than, starting to look in the skies and see them in conjunction with cloak and craft. But anyway, it just looked like a whole lot of disturbed activity tufting up and welling up in here at A, and then again here down at B. So we're going to look to the right, and just here we go. We see, looks like a little object with some strange, little points happening here with dimension all in here, and something trying to form in here. So I'm going to say, it looks like a cloaking activity to me. And this might be a triangular imprint happening in the back of this. Let's see, I think we're going to look at it one more time. Yeah, we're going to zoom in on that B element. So this looks like vapor or stuff, in conjunction with this thing. This has like a spherical shape to it, like a dome. So let's look at it with some enhancement. This is just really exaggerated. And it looks like this is its own little entity, separate from this and whatever's going on down here. But see what you think. It's a very bizarre scene. And then we're just going to look at one more scene. This is at sunrise around 7:10 in the morning. And what caught my attention here is not only did the quality of the sun feel very artificial, and do look at previous shows I have called that talk about the idea of the artificial sun or solar simulator. The Sun is Not Alone and Other Objects is the name of that show, I think, one of my early shows, because it's white and glaring. It did not have any feel to it as does the natural sun. And then we have this, look at the way this quote unquote cloud is diving on a sharp angle while this is coming straight across. Again, that's not natural in a natural cloud system. I've lived decades on this planet. That's not typical cloud behavior. So I'm going to call that artificial cloud. I'm not sure if anything's cloaking in these, but it's artificial for sure. Now we're going to look at A, B, and C because these weird little things are popping off, in this overall vicinity. And when we zoom in and put enhancement on it, these look like little objects. So I'm going to call those some type of UFO or sensor. It's not a typical object. It has a little vapor trail behind it. This one looks like it's moving down in that direction. That's like a little partial crescent form, very distinct shape. And then this thing looks like it has tufted, cloaking activity disturbance happening right where that is. So are these little sensors? Are they cloud generators? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine at this point. But I'll say they're not natural to our natural sky. All right, well, this is the photo of the week and the close of the show. This is just some beautiful white ibis in flight. They're a little bit in silhouette in the sky in Miami. So thank you for heading over here a while. I hope you're having a beautiful evening or afternoon, morning, whatever you are enjoying right at this moment. And, if it's Saturday for you, enjoy the weekend already, I hope. And if you're in the time zone ahead of me, then yeah, keep enjoying every extra ounce of light and whatever you've got going on over there. So I want to just say thank you again for being here, spending some time here a while, and I wish you all the best, sending you tremendous love and peace. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.